In right now, the morning trend is coming to you compliments Rick's Cafe. Rick's Cafe is open for delivery and takeaway services only every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Operating hours 12 noon to 5 p.m. The menu consists of pizza, burgers, nuggets, crunchy wings, wedges, and more. Call 444-4597 to place your order. All orders should be made before 4:30 p.m. Rick's Cafe, walk in, dance out, and also I hear that they're celebrating a birthday at Rick's Cafe. It is Ricky's birthday today.
Oh.
So happy birthday to the owner, Ricky.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying it today. It is a day off technically right now.
Boy, anyway. Yeah, holiday.
Yo, we have a very special guest in the morning trend today. She is known as the first Grenadian on Broadway. Welcome, Rachel Oneika Phillips. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I am wonderful. I am like everyone else in the world, kind of dealing with this global pandemic day by day. But as it stands this morning at 8:25, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be on the show. Good morning, y'all.
Awesome. Does every day feel like Sunday for you?
It does not.
Okay.
It's amazing because now there are different ways to connect with people. So it's kind of incredible how busy I've become via tech.
Right.
So in fact, the days are quite scheduled to ensure that nothing is missed and all is dealt with, and the people who want to connect, I do with. So it's busy, but in terms of, not necessarily in terms of work productiveness, but certainly in terms of connecting with family and friends and just ensuring everybody's okay.
Nice. Awesome. And of course you have family here in Grenada as well. Have you been in contact with them and checking in?
I check in with the friends and family. Facebook is really good for that. And then the WhatsApp. WhatsApp is sort of invaluable in that you can do the video chatting and so on without any additional cost per se. So it's really wonderful to check in on the aunties and the uncles, the friends, and those that are home with their kids, and just kind of talk a little bit of sanity into their day, as they deal with this new existence. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, you are the first Grenadian on Broadway, which is huge for a little island as Grenada. How did you get started on Broadway?
Well, I have to amend that. I specifically have it as the first Grenadian woman on Broadway because
okay.
I feel certain, although I've not had this information for sure, that there may have been someone on the scene prior. So it was Decima Williams, who was a representative for Grenada in the New York consulate at the time, who had said it to me and sort of blessed me with the title. And I really do. I'm very proud of it, but at the same time, I make sure that there's room left for any shoulders that I stand on, just in case. But regardless, the journey of going from the Caribbean to the Broadway stage and many international stages is quite a challenging one that is full of numerous disappointments and reality checks. And then some incredible accomplishments, right? So, I was actually born in Guyana. My mother's side of the family is from Guyana. My father's side of the family is from Trinidad and Grenada. And we moved from Guyana when I was very, very small. And I often say, that adage that home is where the heart is. Grenada absolutely enchanted my heart. And, once I connected to the root of family and my grandmother and her family there, that the island absolutely is home. So, and, at primary school, secondary school, O-levels, A-levels, until finally leaving to come we actually moved across to East Africa first, but that's a whole other story. And then over to the United States for university, where I double majored in dance and business. And this is definitely the fast forward version of this story. Finished university, went on to New York to actually finish up my business degree, worked in marketing and promotions, and then kind of like the hand of the universe steering me, I have danced all my life. And I obviously whatever is greater than me was not ready to have me walk away from that purpose in my life. And so I ended up resigning from marketing and promotions and going, biting the bullet and going for it professionally, which, as I mentioned, is full of fantastic accomplishments and hard disappointments. But that's the human experience. So
how did you deal with the challenges going along the way?
It's
at any point in time when you were like, nah, and
you know what it is. I have an exceptional support team. I have never ever have I felt that I didn't have some sort of buttress, something holding me up, people in my corner, people cheering me on and believing in me, even when I had those very thinning moments of faith.
Right.
And people in my corner, and even my parents who were skeptical about the choice. Their thing in terms of our household is, if you make a choice, you deal with all the consequences of that choice, whether they are good consequences or not so good consequences. But whatever I have to be accountable for making the choice.
Right.
And I have a great, fantastic support system. So whenever it does, or it did get, where there was any skeptical thoughts in my mind or uncertainty, there was always somebody in my ear saying, nah. You got this. If it's anybody that is going to push past a particular boundary or ceiling, is going to be you. So just keep forging forward. And that is now like in my DNA. That support system is in my DNA. It doesn't. These people have been friends and family that have been encouraging me since I was very small to this very day. So that is definitely the thing that keeps me pushing forward.
When was the last time you were on stage?
The last time I was on stage, okay, so we are... Wait, you mean professionally or carrying on in effect?
Not carnival.
Not carnival.
I'm in a fantastic band called Chop and Quench, the Fela Band, which plays the music of Nigerian musician and rebel and activist Fela Kuti. Right. And if you all never heard, whoever's listening never heard of Fela Kuti, turn on his music. I bet your parents blasted him in the 70s. He was sort of like what Bob Marley was to Jamaica in the 70s to now is what Fela Kuti is. Who Fela Kuti was to Nigeria and much of Africa. And we had a brilliant show earlier this year. At this point now, the days are like lost in my head, but those shows are always electric and full of energy, and there's a whole set of dancing, a whole set of singing, very interactive, very, very colorful. Again, if anybody's interested in seeing what that looks like, you can just Google Chop and Quench, and especially on YouTube, there are some fantastic clips of the show, the excitement of the show. And what we try to do is recreate Fela Kuti's format of dancers on stage and him in these eccentric, colorful, beautiful suits, and the energy of the music and the pulsation of the music. And that is something that I miss tremendously in these circumstances. Yeah, certainly. But the last time, but I have to tell you this, the last time I was on stage at a fete was in Trinidad. In Trinidad, where Mr. Killer was performing at Alison Hines' event called Faluma.
Right.
And he came on stage, and I couldn't help myself. I find my way all from the back of the fete to the front and jump on and take my little Grenadian wine and then run back off the stage.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it was really nice because actually because I had my flag and they ended up calling me backstage, and I got a chance to meet him in person and kind of interact about me being in one capacity of performing and him being in another. It was a very quick meeting, but I'm always exceptionally proud when I have an opportunity to speak with someone that is living in their art form and doing well in it, especially if they come from Grenada or the region. So more than like being a Wajang and carrying on. It was actually a really fun
Representing.
and meaningful
Right,
moment for
right.
me to meet him. Yeah.
It was like an ambassadorial role. You were making sure you were
Correct.
representing Grenadians well on stage.
You
I
see it?
understand
You
that.
see
Yeah,
it?
that's
Right? In
fair.
Trinidad, mind you. Hello.
And I see you have your flag in the back there as well.
Always, it lives there. Where
That's
am I? Yes,
amazing.
it lives there. So it brings color to the drab days. Spring is still trying to push through here. Luckily, it's a beautiful day today, but it's been kind of rainy and gray, which is also difficult when you're also inside and you're uncertain of what the next day holds. So sunshine and color is needed, man. Yeah.
And speaking of uncertainty, where do you stand at this point in time with your on-stage career in Broadway? Like, how does this whole situation affect you? Because obviously, no one's going to the theater at this point in time, which means you're not performing. So, how do you feel about it? And have you made any plans just to kind of chart the way forward for yourself as an entertainer?
I just want to throw 2020 away. I just want to toss it. No, but in all, just toss it out the window. Start it over something. No, but in all seriousness, and I'm sure that we've heard this word over and over again, but it honestly is unprecedented times for many people. I mean, theater depends on the gathering of crowds to observe, and you are on stage and they're in the audience, and there's this energetic exchange that makes it thrilling. And for the first time, probably in history or in recent history, Broadway is dark. That means there are no shows. This has been since about mid-March. And that, I mean, I always tell people it's called show business for a reason, because it is a business. And like any business, like any profit generating business, there are steps and gears that have to work together. And once one stops, all of those are impacted. So, performers are not performing and therefore not getting paid. Theaters are closed, and so producers are not making the money that they utilize to put towards health insurance, to put towards pension, to put towards social security. And this is your life you're talking about, and all of this is sort of ground to a halt. Now, if you are part of the Broadway community, you are a member of the Actors Equity Association, which is a union for actors, dancers, and singers, right? So the union has been working exceptionally hard. The AEA has been working exceptionally hard to come up with ways of dealing with these issues that have never, ever been dealt with before for thousands and thousands of people, not just performers, but like I said, producers, stage managers, costume designers, the ushers that work in the theaters, the people that sell the tickets. It's a fantastic number of people that are impacted. And, I am in a very fortunate position where, well, I have a new show that's coming up. It's a revival of a show called 1776. And I am so very excited about this show. And of course, like so many others, it's on a kind of non-defined pause because of this situation. But what the creators and the creative team and producers of that show decided to do was a virtual workshop, which is sort of it was the first of its kind, a rehearsal we used the Zoom platform, right? So every day we would check in, we would have our schedule and treat it just like when we are in the studio. You come in at the call time that you're given, you rehearse for X number of hours, you break at a certain time. We are discussing the script, the music, opinion. We're doing study on the content. And 1776 is about the founding of America, mainly dealing with the Declaration of Independence and all the flaws and issues around that. And so we had magnificent Harvard professors and historians come in to talk to us, and we really got to tackle work in a way that would not happen if we were not doing it virtually. So the exercise was very interesting as an experiment of how to approach work as an actor. It was absolutely innovative and new and different. Usually once you get in the room, you might spend maybe a couple days on that sort of work. If you're lucky, if there's luxury of time, you might spend a week. But usually it's like you're getting into the script, you're learning it, you're figuring out roles and parts and placement and all the usual facets of theater. But in this circumstance, what it indicated to me is that there are windows of innovation and new ways of approaching the artistic history that are going to be necessary, because this proves, as it has for so many other industries, that there is exceptional vulnerability when it comes to industries that depend on people coming together to work, right? So mind you, of course, we didn't do a lot of movement. Unfortunately, because you on waves, on internet signal waves, you can't exactly sing together, right? Because
there will be a delay.
There are delays, right? So but it was a fantastic glimmer of hope of what the industry can do, and you can see it happening on Instagram and Facebook, and the way people are attempting to share their craft, right? While depending on people to give some sort of donation of some sort to the work. Right now, how sustainable that is as the economy slows and slows and slows is yet to be seen, right? You hope that people can keep contributing to your craft in one way or another, but again, it's cogs and pieces. So we hope that things get back into place where people are getting back to work and they can earn their money, and therefore people that can't gather in very large crowds have an opportunity to have income coming from online. But all of this is just new territory. It's kind of like a Wild West of discovery of how to go about ensuring that you have some sort of income flow at a point where your particular industry is not functioning. It is dark for right now, Yes, carry on, please. Sorry.
Yeah. Do you think that there will be hesitation with people to get back to going out to these shows when this has passed? Like, say we get over there.
I think so.
Do you think that people will be hesitant?
Yeah, I think there's just a sort of intrinsic psychological worry. I think it's like two sets of people. There'll be those that they are itching at their doors. They will jump on planes. They will go and they will go in the fete. They will not a mask, not a glove, the fete, the theater, whatever, and just be like, one life to live, YOLO, and all that good stuff.
That's me.
But for the most part, right? Exactly. But for the most part, people, who they have extensions of themselves. So they have children, parents, aunts, uncles, and so on. They're going to be very careful about stepping back into these large spaces. And even if theaters come up with an idea of, okay, we're going to every 6 seat, we'll place patrons and, lineups, indication of how to line up and when you come in or whatever. But that's going to remove like a third of the audience, if not more. Right. And that impacts, again, that energy exchange. And then once a place is operating, you now have operating costs. So does that sort of partial attendance cover those operating costs? You know what I mean? So I think I honestly think people are going to be hesitant for quite a while. I think until, my honest opinion in listening to some news this morning is until there's a vaccine, we are sort of just kind of figuring out what to do. So until there's a vaccine where people feel protected and they can go back out, or some sort of indication from the World Health Organization that, okay, now is the time we are safe, that people are going to be careful. I think like for about a year, people are going to be wearing masks, wearing gloves, just to be safe.
Right.
Very good. And you've recently done the SpongeBob SquarePants, and those pictures are so animated and cool. How long does it take you getting ready with all the makeup and the fandangles for that production?
It's incredible. I always tell people that for as much choreography that's happening on stage, there is probably twice as much that's happening off stage. So in a production like SpongeBob SquarePants, where we are becoming versions of these insane, wacky, wonderful creatures under the sea, we have a costume department that is working exceptionally hard backstage. So, my process was to come in about an hour before the show and start my process, get the makeup done. I do my own makeup because you eventually learn how to do it by yourself. And then you have a call time. Now, and all the shows design these incredible, very expensive, very precious wigs. So, for example, my wig was a sort of crazy, insane mohawk that had these braids at the back and braids up the side. And I would have a call time for them to put it on my head. And believe it or not, that would only take them about 2 or 3 minutes to get on my head, if that, to get on my head. But the preparation and the care of the wig, that department actually stays after the show so that it's ready for the next day, so that it only takes 2 minutes to put on my head. Wow. So it's like, that's what I was saying, like there's cogs and pieces, everything fits into the other. When it comes to this particular echelon of performance, everybody, the costume department, hair and makeup, the tech crew that is responsible for lighting and the curtain going up and down and any props, anything that pops accidentally during the show and needs to be fixed while the show happens. It's really an incredible network of worker bees that's happening in the background so that things don't take as long as they might if only I was doing it, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that was so exciting, such an exciting show.
How long are the rehearsals for a typical Broadway show? So say if you're going live in April, when do you actually start reading the script for the first time, learning the first dance and those sorts of things?
Okay, now if you're talking about, we are getting ready for our Broadway run. So we have a rehearsal, you audition, you get your contract, you are beginning rehearsals for the April Broadway run. You might do that anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks prior. Some shows, again, that have more luxury might do it like 12 weeks, but it's usually quite like about a 2-month rehearsal process, right? And that includes about 3 weeks of going into the theater and now including costuming, lighting, the real stage space, the backstage area, so that you can see if what you learned in the studio, which is where you always start rehearsals in the studio first, if what you did in the studio actually works on the stage. So about 6 to 8 weeks of rehearsal prior to the Broadway run that's prepped and ready to go. Now, if you're talking about the inception, for example, with Fela, was my very first Broadway show, again, about the life and music of Fela Kuti. There was iterations, right? So somebody comes up with the idea, they write it, they find somebody that might be interested, they find someone that might be interested in financing or investing in the show. And I'll tell you, like for Fela, that probably took from about 2000 and I would say 2005-ish. Right. And then the show opened on Broadway at the end of 2009. Wow. So there's iterations. So you have workshops. Something works, it doesn't work. Some people are interested. Who's available? Who's not available? It's a really incredible. That has to take place. A lot. So if you're talking about inception to Broadway, that can be years and years and years of work. Wow. If you're talking about, okay, the show has gone through all of that, and now it is ready to be put on the Broadway stage or to be put onto a national tour, then that usually is about 6 to 8 weeks of rehearsal. So the new one I have coming up, 1776, We were supposed to begin rehearsals April 6th with the May, yes, with the intent of starting performances towards the end of May. And we were kind of going to do it a little different, backwards. We were going to tour the United States first and then swing around and have the performance on Broadway, which is a little different than how it's usually done. But again, this is one of these circumstances where we now have to innovate that preparation so that when it is time and when things are ready to go, we can just jump right back in instead of being set all the way back to some point in the process that's going to hold us up even more.
Right.
What a time.
I know. It's so amazing. And it sounds like there's so many things we could talk to you about. Now, just as we wrap up, how are you keeping busy? Are you still dancing? Are you still exercising? Is there anything happening on your IG that people can tune in for?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is Dragon Passion Fruit. Don't ask, long story. That is what it is. Dragon Passion Fruit. So what I have started doing is these, what I call Soca Saturdays. So I give a short cardio soca class, which is, the intent is that you have fun. The intent is that you get your blood flowing. And the intent is that you pull yourself out of the sort of like the humdrum of the quarantine, right? And that you just inject some energy and joy and happiness in your space for at least an hour. And that happens on Saturday. So for the first time last week, Saturday, I went live on IG. I usually pre-record so that people could use it anytime. It's specifically for moms who might be with their kids. And so a live might not work, but right. I had requests to do it live. So I'm now working on a format for live, a format for Zoom. And what I started to do last week is encourage people to make donations. And the promise is that whatever is earned, a portion of that will go to the Actors Fund. And the Actors Fund is an incredible organization and resource here in New York that provides aid for people who are in severe need of it, right? So whether that is money for rent, money for medicine, access to healthcare, and in this conversation of COVID, the request for funds has, ramped up. So rather than just feeling like, oh, here's my money, give it to Oneika, it's that you can feel good that any money that is made, a portion of that will go to the Actors Fund. And that's a promise that I've made to my fans or anybody that's coming in to take the class, that money, a portion of that money will go to help people that really need it. Yeah. Awesome. Yes. And to another point, the schedule of the workshop, which was completed last weekend, also indicated to me the importance of a schedule. So that's what I've done for myself. It's like daily, what are the things, what is the purpose of every day? What am I going to get done today? And how can I go about honing my craft, even though I'm not in the studio, even though I'm not interacting with people physically? How can I access my teachers online? All these classes and opportunities that are now out in the world for people to take advantage of. I'm trying to see what works for me so that I come out a little sharper than coming in. And that is my plan. That's what works for me. That's not for everybody. The formula is different for different people. Some people truly need to just sit back and breathe through it, right? There is no law that says people had to be productive and they had to make a schedule and they have to feel a certain way at the end of the day. That is not what this is about, right? That question is specifically for me and what works for me and what helps me sort of look for the light at the end of the tunnel for when we get back to whatever the new normal will be.
Because it is a different time we're in right now, and we do have to adjust in everything that we're doing currently. All right.
Everything.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure. Outside of the fact that Olia made me want to have Rick's Cafe Pizza at 8:30 in the morning.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
I have to say that it is really, really honor and a privilege to be on with you guys. I think the show is really fantastic, and I really thank you for providing space for me to share my story and to give encouragement to anybody that's out there. So if you're looking for enjoyment and a smile, join me on Saturdays. Just check out my IG, Dragon Passion Fruit. And for just a little bit of enjoyment through this mess, until we get to the other side. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. And of course, that was your morning trend. Came to you compliments Rick's Cafe. Walk in, dance out. The hit list is up next. Stay tuned.
Power Hit List. Today's biggest chart toppers happening now.